Why did Darth Plagueis fear Qui-Gon Jinn more than any other Jedi? Greetings again, Acolytes, and welcome back to the archives. In the novel Darth Plagueis, Sidious once said that if he and his master were to team up against the entirety of the Jedi High Council, that the two of them would be able to wipe them all out with relative ease. Two Sith equaling a Jedi Council was nothing for the rule of two. The Sith had grown far beyond the power of the average Jedi Master, and there was nothing they feared from the Order besides premature discovery. The Sith had grown beyond the Jedi, or at least they thought. Yet, there was still one Jedi that Darth Plagueis the Wise was absolutely terrified of. A single Jedi which had the potential to completely unravel the Sith grand plan without even knowing it. The Jedi is of course Qui-Gon Jinn, and just by doing what he did in the Phantom Menace, this sent Darth Plagueis into a downward spiral of panic and distress. In today's Holocron, we are going to be talking about why Plagueis considered Qui-Gon to be the biggest threat to the Sith plan, making Qui-Gon Jinn the only Jedi that the Moon Sith Lord ever truly feared. Above individuals such as Yoda and Dooku, Qui-Gon Jinn to the Sith was something special. And today, we will be opening the Sith Holocron and analyze Plagueis' true, warranted fear of the Jedi Master. If you've been enjoying our content though, consider subscribing. It would be our great pleasure for you to join our order. Unlike many other Jedi, Plagueis had the pleasure of meeting Qui-Gon Jinn in person on a single occasion, face to face. Under Plagueis' alter ego of Qui-Gon Damask, Plagueis attended a social function on Coruscant, and it would be here where he would meet Qui-Gon Jinn, a much younger Qui-Gon, along with his master Dooku and the Jedi Sifo-Dyas. Plagueis' initial impression of Qui-Gon was a rocky one, as Qui-Gon would publicly confront the Moon about Damask Holdings, Plagueis' own branch of the IBC, backed by the Trade Federation. You see, Qui-Gon Damask was an exceptionally influential and a wealthy individual, being in charge of a large section of the intergalactic banking clan. Qui-Gon would go on to unashamedly tell Qui-Gon Damask to his face that his support of the Federation was causing financial problems on many smaller planets, and that it was unjust. The two men would debate back and forth about the state of the galaxy for a moment, before the conversation ultimately moved on, and Qui-Gon dropped it out of respect. But it was following this event that Qui-Gon had left a certain impression on the Dark Lord. Plagueis realized in this moment that unlike the Jedi Council and most of the Jedi, Qui-Gon actually had his ear to the ground. Qui-Gon Jinn was much more aware of the state of affairs going on in the galaxy than any other Jedi. Plagueis had no doubt Jedi of this kind had long been extinct and were extremely dangerous to the Sith, as at this time they were relying on the Jedi to have their heads in the clouds, to be distracted by the little things. But Qui-Gon Jinn never was. This small debate even stirred some fear in Palpatine, who was concerned that if the Jedi woke up for just a moment, they would discover their own flaws, and in doing this, discover the Sith. But Qui-Gon, like his master Dooku, was ahead of the curve, and no other Jedi would listen to their counsel. Some sections of the Jedi Order would even label Qui-Gon Jinn a heretic. For a while, Plagueis put Master Qui-Gon out of his mind and continued moving forward with his plans with Sidious. That was until the Naboo crisis of the Phantom Menace. While the two of them were having a concerned discussion over the control of the Senate, Palpatine received a disturbing call that Chancellor Valorum had dispatched two Jedi Knights to negotiate with the Trade Federation blockade. The Plagueis novel reads as follows. Plagueis asks, did Valorum say which Jedi they were sending? Sidious responds, Qui-Gon Jinn and his Padawan, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Plagueis came to an abrupt halt. Worse news yet, I have met Qui-Gon Jinn. He is nothing like some of the other Jedi that Dooku has trained. The Jedi are a pesky duo, Sidious said, and Plagueis responded, then Gunray and his sycophants stand no chance against them. Plagueis here, although seemingly calm, is in a panic. He realizes that if there was anyone in the galaxy that could get Nute Gunray to squeal and reveal the Sith, that Jedi would be Qui-Gon Jinn. His reaction is fascinating. He openly states how different Qui-Gon is from any other Jedi. Even Sidious was aware of Qui-Gon's exploits with Obi-Wan, and the two of them then silently agreed that it was time for the Sith to return. Maul was to be dispatched to deal with Qui-Gon and Kenobi. It's incredible to realize that Qui-Gon alone was the entire reason that Plagueis and Darth Sidious decided that it was finally time to reveal the Sith to the galaxy after hundreds of years. That is how monumental of a threat Qui-Gon Jinn was. Things would only get worse when Maul failed to kill the Jedi Master on Tatooine. Sidious learns from a secret meeting with Dooku that Qui-Gon believes that he has found the Chosen One, a boy of 9 years old born of the Force. Sidious was shocked at this information and went immediately to tell his master after the meeting. There was no possible worse scenario for the Sith than this moment. Qui-Gon had found the Chosen One. Sidious immediately fled to tell his master, and when Plagueis learned of this information, he rushed to Palpatine's apartment, where the boy was being held. The entire time, Plagueis' mind reeled about the possibility that the Force had struck yet again, conceiving a child to bring about balance. At first, Plagueis attempted to dominate the mind of one of Padme's handmaidens in order to fetch the boy so that he could look upon him with his own eyes, but she informed him that Qui-Gon had already come to collect Anakin and took him directly to the Jedi Council for evaluation. Plagueis stumbled back in fear as he heard this, and said within his mind, "Are we done? Have you undone us?" 1,000 years of planning and secrecy in the rule of two was hanging by a thread because of Qui-Gon Jinn. And most disturbing of all, it had nothing to do with Qui-Gon Jinn's power or his skill and dominion over the Force, but rather his knowledge of the living Force and his bold attitude. Plagueis continued, desperate to see the boy, eventually finding a landing dock at which the Queen's entourage convened at one time. And here, Plagueis would learn that Anakin had already met with the High Council. This is where Qui-Gon knelt to explain what midichlorians actually were to Anakin. And appropriately, it was at this moment that Plagueis, the manipulator of the midichlorians, was watching from the shadows using macro binoculars. He was immensely concerned about Anakin being trained as a Jedi. Hopefully, because he was too old, the council would have dismissed him, but unfortunately the Dark Lord had no way of knowing what their ruling was, so as he watched them on the landing platform, this is what the novel says. Lifting his face from the macro binoculars, he stretched out with the Force and fell victim to an assault of perplexing images. Ferocious battles in deep space, the clashing of lightsabers, partitions of radiant light, a black, helmeted cyborg rising from a table. By the time his gaze had returned to the platform, Qui-Gon Jinn and the boy had disappeared. Trying desperately to make sense of the images granted to him by the Force, Plagueis stood motionless, watching the starship lift from the platform and climb into the night. He fought to repress the truth. The boy would change the course of history, unless Maul had to kill Qui-Gon Jinn to stop the boy from being trained. Qui-Gon was the key to everything. In this vision, Plagueis not only saw the duel on Naboo, but also images of the Clone Wars and the rise of Darth Vader. While he didn't know how to make sense of any of these events, he was still certain of a single thing. Qui-Gon was going to be the fulcrum on which all of this would lay. Of course, we all know that Qui-Gon being the master of Anakin is the best possible timeline, and that's now affirmed in the lore, as Plagueis realized this too. This does not even have to be speculated on. Plagueis was certain of it. He took measures to prevent Anakin's training, ordering Darth Maul to slaughter Qui-Gon Jinn. If Qui-Gon trained Anakin, he would become the most powerful Force wielder in the galaxy and destroy the Sith. What's compelling is even in Plagueis' mind, it didn't matter if any other Jedi trained Anakin. He just had to make sure that it was not Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon possessed such a knowledge of the living Force, and Anakin would have reached his full potential. Originally, Darth Plagueis wanted Anakin killed in the attack on Naboo, but he was satisfied with Qui-Gon's death. I honestly believe that had Maul completely failed his mission, Plagueis would have been inclined to reveal himself and to duel and execute Qui-Gon personally. The amount of impact that Master Qui-Gon Jinn was unknowingly having on the Sith plans already made him the biggest threat in the galaxy. If he found out that the Sith were lurking behind the scenes of galactic events, including the Senate, then Qui-Gon would stop at nothing to uncover and stop the plan. Unlike other Jedi, Qui-Gon's mind was perfectly clear, trusting exclusively in the will of the Force and allowing it to direct his actions. Qui-Gon Jinn couldn't see the outcome. He walked by faith and not by sight. This is why he was guided to answers to questions that he had never even asked. This was detrimental to the Sith, who were relying on the Jedi to be stuck in dogma. Sidious admitted that there was no greater threat to them than a resolute Jedi, and it was because Qui-Gon Jinn showed this kind of resolve and willingness to listen to the Force that he became the Jedi that Plagueis feared beyond anyone else. But what do you think of this, my friends and fellow acolytes? What are your thoughts on this refreshing look at Qui-Gon Jinn and Plagueis? And had you expected him to fear someone like Qui-Gon more than Yoda? As always, my friends, thank you so much for passing by the archives today, and as always, may the Force be with you.